This is Kelso Sturgeon. Thank you very much for joining me for another session at my College of Advanced Football Handicapping. On this report, we're going to discuss tonight's Orange Bowl and Sugar Bowl games, maybe offer you a little insight there. Also going to go into detail on how you might want to start your handicapping of the NFL wildcard games on Saturday and Sunday. And just so you know, I'll be back here on Monday morning devoting the entire show to the BCS championship game between Florida State and Auburn. Have some insights there. Just let it be said, I've always had as one of my mantras that trees don't grow to the sky. I haven't talked to anybody that likes Auburn to beat Florida State because Florida State has just been crushing everybody. A reminder that of the fact that trees don't grow to the sky. Central Florida supposed to have absolutely no chance against Baylor last night. I beg your pardon, on Wednesday night. And Central Florida won the game straight up, rather impressively, I thought. By the way, a 25-unit winner for me. Now let's get to tonight's two games. We have Clemson and Ohio State meeting in the Orange Bowl. We have Oklahoma State and Missouri getting it on in the Cotton Bowl. I think I said Sugar Bowl earlier. I meant the Cotton Bowl. By the way, which will be played in Cowboy Stadium in Arlington and not in the old Cotton Bowl. You look at Clemson and Ohio State. Ohio State's a solid 3-point favorite across the board. The total 61.5. I'm one of these guys that have always doubted how good Ohio State is, despite the fact they've lost one game in the last two seasons. And I've never had a lot of faith in Clemson. I kind of, waver a little bit there. But for some reason, there just always seemed to be something missing or some element that would sneak out of the woodwork and beat me when I take a big stand on Clemson. I think that it's safe to say that Ohio State's status went up considerably after Michigan State, the only team that's beaten it in the last 2 years, looked powerful and impressive, dramatic win over Stanford in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day. So Ohio State's status is elevated a bit. We know this team is talented, loaded with blue chip players, and got a great coach in Urban Meyer, and a guy who absolutely hates to lose, as we found out after the Michigan State game. As for the Oklahoma State-Missouri game, Missouri 11-2, Oklahoma State 10-2. Both these teams have very explosive offenses, and the question boils down to a couple of things. The greatest of which is who has the better skill players. I think I know, and it's going to play a major part in my using this game. But the one thing I want you to know about the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl games tonight, I'm releasing them in a 100-unit parlay. 40 units on the side in both games, and then a 20-unit parlay at odds of 13-5. Now, I've only released one two-team parlay during the bowl games, one at this past week, and it was a 50-unit play on UCLA and Mississippi State, both of which won in blowouts. I don't expect either team to win in a blowout tonight, but in the world of points and half points, I do believe I have determined the two or three things in both games that will determine the point spread winner. Once again tonight, a 100-unit play on a parlay on the Clemson-Ohio State game and the Oklahoma State-Missouri game. I do intend to get all the cash, 40 units on each side, 20 units on the parlay. Now let's get into the NFL playoffs, which there's several things that I think bettors need to understand. There's only 12 teams left in the playoffs. 8 of them will be in action this weekend as the wild card round commences. Now, of these 12 teams, Seattle, a 2-1 favorite to win the Super Bowl. The Denver Broncos at 5-2 to win it, and then you've got San Francisco at 7-1, and New England at 7-1. All four of those teams sit out this week. because of their records and their places in the hierarchy. They draw the bye, and they sit back and rest and watch these other 8 teams play. But the bottom line is, there are 12 teams left, and I can promise you one thing. It is an absolute fact that any one of the 12 can win the Super Bowl. In fact, twice in recent memory, the number 6 seed advanced to the Super Bowl and won it. You can read more about that in my newsletter this week. So the point that I'm making, we look at these teams and we say, well, Seattle is so superior that nobody can beat the Seahawks, especially since they have the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Some say the same thing about New England, a number 2 seed. But the bottom line is, anybody can beat anybody at this stage of the game, and nobody has to say there's a tremendous added incentive. I don't care if you are a player on one of these 12 teams and you've reached this point of the season, you can be beat up and sore and tired and run down and borderline exhausted, and you will come to play in these games. That's just a simple fact. All that is put aside. It's a new season in the NFL, and everybody has a chance to win the Super Bowl, all 12 teams. Now, analyzing these Super Bowl games, keep in mind that Indianapolis is host to Kansas City on Saturday. Indianapolis a 2.5-point favorite, 46.5 total. You've got the New Orleans Saints at the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia 2.5-point favorite of 53.5 total. Then on Sunday, they got the Chargers at Cincinnati and San Francisco at the Green Bay Packers. Now, these are wild card teams. As I said, any of them can win straight up. Certainly, any of them can cover the number. Now, here's 5 things that I think you can use to stimulate your mind and kick off the handicapping process on the wild card games. And this is chronicled and covered in much greater detail in this week's newsletter, which you can read on this site right now. I want to, number 1, how well is the team playing at the end of the season? And I pointed out an example that bettors are very concerned about the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 11-5. They opened the season 9-0, finished 2-5, and come into the playoffs having lost their last 2 games. It seems to me the teams playing well certainly do have an edge. Kansas City, I'm not about to rule them out, but they didn't close out the season in spectacular fashion. Now, you also might be able to get some history here. Did these teams play during their regular season? For example, and it's back to Kansas City again. Kansas City, which is playing at Indianapolis, these teams played just 2 weeks ago in Kansas City, and Indianapolis won 23-7 as a 7.5-point underdog. What about injuries, especially to key skill players? Let's get to the Denver Broncos here because it's a perfect example. With Denver, they get back wide receiver Wes Welker. That is a tremendous move on their part. Welker is as good a pass receiver as there is in the NFL. At the same time, they will be without 3 or 4 of their best defensive players. Now, I don't know what kind of a trade-off this is, but you've got to keep in mind that you've got to weigh these injuries and how they fit into the handicapping process. Denver, a bonus on one side, a negative on the other. Know the injury situation with every team you bet on. The coaching factor. I give an edge to any coach who has a proven record in the postseason and just seems to keep getting it done. For instance, Bill Belichick in New England, 18-8 in the postseason, won 5 American Football Conference championships and 3 Super Bowls in 2001, 2003, and 2004. This guy is the real deal when it comes to the postseason. And last but not least, has any team shown or illustrated a well-defined tendency in some area, be it good or bad? Now let's look at the Seattle Seahawks, the favorites to win it all. It's safe to say that Seattle has a very strong home field advantage. The Seahawks are 15-1 straight up at home over the last 2 seasons, the regular season, and 12-4 against the number in those games. That's a strong bias. It's something you've got to take into consideration, and it's an example of the things that you need to look for. Now, on the suspect side, the New England Patriots. I realize that they're seeded number 2, and many people do like them to win another Super Bowl. But here's a team that has shown absolutely no ability to put any opponent away, and it is of note that the 4 games they lost were by a touchdown or less. So I don't know what that all translates into, but these are the kind of things you need to look for as you're trying to determine a point spread winner. Now, I kick off the playoffs on Saturday. A 50-unit play on one of the 2 games. We'll be releasing both games on Sunday, releasing the my 100-unit NFL wildcard game of the year. We'll also be releasing both games that day, all unit rated. Now, Monday night's game is very special. The BCS championship game between Florida State and Auburn. I've got a very strong opinion on the game. I'm going to release it at the 200-unit level. Just keep in mind these things as we head into the weekend. Number 1, a 100-unit parlay tonight on the Orange and Cotton Bowls, 2 dynamite nationally televised games. On Saturday, 50-unit play on the one of the wild card games, probably a 10 or 15-unit play on the second game. On Sunday, my 100-unit wild card game of the year. You can get all these games plus all my daily basketball where I'm winning in both the colleges and the NBA. You can get all these games on this website and toll free at 1-800-755-2255. Come get the money with me. Celebrate the opening of the new year with all these winners, and I intend to produce them in spades. Thanks again for watching, and please come back on Monday morning when we'll have our full video dedicated to the BCS championship game. Thanks again.